guys, hope everyone's doing well today. I'm coming on here today because Christ has had it in my heart for a while now to start sharing parts of my journey with him ever since he awakened me in 2018. And to be honest, I just haven't felt confident or strong enough to do so until recently. But I've known for a while now that my first assignment on here is going to be about my experience with the Jezebel and Ahab spirits. Mostly Jezebel, but the soul tie that I had with both of them through very close family members, and how Jesus Christ alone broke me out of the oppression that I was living under for years. So I hope you guys don't mind looking at my shower curtain. I don't know how to do anything on YouTube really, but I need to get this out now. So hope you don't mind. So anyway, I'm going to break this down into a few different chunks because it's kind of a lengthy story, but hopefully you can stick with me through it, and I pray that this reaches and blesses whoever Christ intends to receive this message. I guess I first need to give you some background on who the physical Jezebel was in the Bible in the Old Testament. You really just need to read all of 1st and 2nd Kings for yourself, but for this first video, I'm going to give you a summary about the Jezebel in the Bible, and then we'll get into the characteristics of the nature of the Jezebel spirit, and then I will finally get to share my story with you, which I'm looking forward to doing. So I'm going to just read this description to you, and I will link some different resources at the bottom. So the first thing you need to know about Jezebel is she is not just any ordinary woman. She was a Phoenician princess in the 9th century BC, the daughter of King Ethbal. Their kingdom worshipped the nature god Baal, among other gods, which would later be a point of contention within her next kingdom. At the time of 922 BC, Israel was a divided nation, Israel to the north and Judah to the south, and Phoenicia, located to the north of Israel, was considered a city that couldn't care less about following the traditions and beliefs of Yahweh, the true God. What is now present-day Lebanon once comprised the coastal towns of Tyre and Sidon that King Ethbal ruled. A peaceful solution for the divided nation was suggested in the form of an arranged marriage between the newly appointed king of Israel's son, Ahab, to the Phoenicians' princess Jezebel. It was a political decision. Jezebel appears in the Bible in 1 Kings, first in chapter 16, verse 31, as stated as daughter of Ethbal, king of the Sidonians, instead of the Phoenicians. But the Sidonians was really just a general biblical term for the Phoenicians. This is also the point of the Bible where the marriage between Jezebel and Ahab is mentioned. After the wedding for Jezebel and Ahab's arranged marriage, it soon became apparent that Jezebel wasn't planning on changing her worship of Baal just because she was in a new kingdom. As briefly stated in 1 Kings 18:4, Queen Jezebel continued worshiping Baal in her new home, despite how this angered the townspeople of Israel. She even brought 850 Baal prophets into the kingdom to encourage the worship of Baal by others. When the prophets of Yahweh stood up against Jezebel's promotion of Baal worship, she had them killed. It is described as a massacre in 1 Kings 18:4, enough to where Obadiah, the lead prophet within King Ahab's palace, had to hide lots of prophets in caves to avoid their deaths at the hands of Jezebel. Jezebel's wrath of murder didn't just end there. It continued when the king wanted to take a vineyard from Naboth, the Jezreelite, that was located next to the palace. Naboth's refusal to give the vineyard that had been in his family for years led Ahab to go into a depression, and Queen Jezebel took matters again into her own hands. I'm sorry if y'all hear some background. My cats are going crazy. She told King Ahab to arise and eat while she would deliver the vineyard into his hands, which she did using letters with his seal, advising 2 men to falsely accuse Naboth of blaspheming God and the king and requesting that he be stoned to death. Around the same time, Israel was also experiencing a drought, and King Ahab and Obadiah were trying to find water and grass to keep the city's livestock alive. It was while Obadiah was searching for water and food that he crossed paths with the prophet Elijah, sent by God to help the kingdom, who had predicted in 1 Kings 17 that a drought would be sent to Jezebel due to Jezebel's actions. The treason committed by King Ahab and Jezebel had encouraged the drought created by God, and Elijah voiced God's proclamation that Jezebel's murder of his prophets and Naboth, with King Ahab's passive assistance — that's a key with the Ahab spirit, is being passive — this meant their deaths were imminent as well. 1 Kings 21:19 states that like Naboth's blood was licked up by the dogs of the kingdom after his death, their blood would also be licked up by the dogs. When King Ahab heard this proclamation, he immediately began fasting and mourning, repenting of what he did to the Lord. This display of humility led God to reverse the destruction to come during King Ahab's generation to be fulfilled in the next generation of his son, or in the generation of his son. Jezebel's death isn't recorded until the book of 2 Kings 9:30 through 37, where the newly anointed king, Jehu, after King Ahab, who died in battle, was named. He assassinated Jezebel's son, killing those who belonged to the house of Ahab, as well as Jezebel's sympathizers. It is said in 2 Kings 9:30 that Jezebel, knowing that Jehu was coming to kill her, adorned herself with fine clothing and makeup and waited for him by looking out her bedroom window. When she saw Jehu approach through the gate, she asked if peace was what he came to bring, followed by calling him murderer of your master. This was in reference to her dead son. Jehu asked the eunuchs by Jezebel's side if they were on his side. 2 or 3 looked down at him, and he commanded them to throw her from the window. She died from the fall, and when Jehu's men came to bury her body, in honor of her royal blood, all that was found was her skull, feet, and hands. Her body's desecration reflected Elijah's earlier prophecy in 1 Kings 21:23 that dogs will lick the blood of Ahab and tear the flesh of Jezebel. Many wonder whether Jezebel's actions of makeup and fine jewelry or fine clothing were meant to either seduce Jehu or as a stand against her murderer. But either way, Jezebel's stand before death doesn't drift too far from the command of attention and control that she expressed throughout her reign as queen. If anything, Jezebel is forever synonymous with someone who carved her own path that may or may not have been for the betterment of others or even herself. Some may desire her for her actions that changed the trajectory of her husband's leadership of Israel, while others might see her actions as someone who rejected the Lord's desire for a woman to be a peaceful blessing to her husband, instead being a woman who sought success through dangerous, murderous actions. Someone who's carving her own path, not submitting to the will of God, that is not a woman of God. Okay, so there's still an important aspect of the physical Jezebel's identity that we need to touch on, and that's the fact that she stood in direct opposition of the Lord's prophets, the true prophets. And this is still true for the Jezebel spirit today. She is an anti-prophet, false prophet. As King Ahab's wife, Jezebel mandated that her religion should be the national religion of Israel and organized guilds of prophets of Baal in the number of 450 and Asherah in the number of 400. As a result, Jezebel is described as an enemy of God who is killing off the Lord's prophets. That's referenced in 1 Kings 18:4. In response, the prophet Elijah accused King Ahab of abandoning the Lord and challenged Jezebel's prophets to a contest. They were to meet him on the top of Mount Carmel. Then Jezebel's prophets would slaughter a bull, but not set fire to it, as required for an animal sacrifice. Elijah would do the same on another altar. Whichever god caused the bull to catch fire would then be proclaimed the true God. Jezebel's prophets beseeched their gods to ignite their bull, but nothing happened. When it was Elijah's turn, he soaked his bull in water, prayed, and then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice. And that's in 1 Kings 18:38. Upon seeing this miracle, the people who were watching prostrated themselves and believed that Elijah's God was the true God. Elijah then commanded the people to kill Jezebel's prophets, which they did. When Jezebel learns of this, she declares Elijah an enemy and promises to kill him just as he killed her prophets. Then Elijah fled to the wilderness, where he mourned Israel's devotion to Baal. So yeah, that is the Jezebel of the Bible, y'all. We still see this Jezebel spirit today. It's really more alive than ever, honestly, in both believers and non-believers. It's infiltrating and compromising the church. It often works hand in hand with the religious spirit. Not always, but that was the case for my family member, is the case. Tears families, relationships, the carrier themselves apart. It is vile. It's not just any spirit either. This is a very high level spirit. It is complicated. it is one of the absolutely most dangerous ones out there, and honestly, the Jezebel spirit has been referred to many times as the bride of Satan. So I will leave this video at that. Again, I highly encourage you to read 1st and 2nd Kings for yourself, if not just for this tidbit, but they are just some awesome books in the Old Testament that I enjoyed a lot. So I will leave it here. May God bless you, and I will see you soon.